Now You See Me 2 is a sequel to Now You See Me, which, as you can tell, is a guilty pleasure of mine. This movie is kind of dumb, but it's gleefully dumb. Like, there's a lot of shit that happens that doesn't make sense, and you kind of are left scratching your head, but the movie is so self-aware of itself and just wants to have fun that you can kind of roll with it. Now You See Me 2, once again, has the four horsemen back, except one of them is no longer Isla Fisher, because apparently she was dealing with a pregnancy during this filming, so she has been replaced with Lizzy Caplan, and these guys have been drawn into a game by Daniel Radcliffe's character, who claims that he has been financially harmed severely by what they did in the first film. So Jesse Eisenberg, Woody Harrelson, Dave Franco, Lizzy Caplan, and Mark Ruffalo, who are all teamed up as the various horsemen, now have to figure out a way to get out of this situation while also revealing Daniel Radcliffe's character for who he really is. Like I said, the first film was stupid. There was a lot of magic in it that didn't make sense, like they jumped off of a rooftop and turned into playing cards somehow. But it was well directed enough and well acted enough to the point where you could get into it and at least kind of gleefully go along with it and have fun. With this movie, I was hoping it would be the same way. A movie that just totally knew what it was. It was ready to go and it was ready to have fun and entertain you. And in some ways, it does. It's a loud, very fast movie with a lot of really flashy things happening. But for me, it was sort of like a magician that you enjoy watching, but there's just nothing really there in his act. He might pull a rabbit out of a hat. He might have a dove fly out of somebody's coat, and that might impress you and it might be visually interesting for 1 second, but you almost instantaneously forget about it the second you do something else. And that's kind of what Now You See Me 2 was like for me. There's tons of flashy, big sequences, but none of them really add up to anything. We have so many great actors in this movie, and Mark Ruffalo, for me, carried the entire thing. He has the most heartfelt story in this movie. His character is given the most reason, I guess, for being there. All of the other characters just kind of felt like contractually obligated characters. Ruffalo had a reason to be in this movie. He had motivation, he had something driving him. His character was by far the best in this film, and his performance for me was the best in this film. He was also my favorite part of the first movie. As far as characters go, the rest really don't have much going on. Let's talk about Woody Harrelson in this movie. He's one of my favorite actors, and something that hasn't been marketed that much is that he also plays his exact twin in this film, who I wouldn't describe as the Jar Jar Binks of the Now You See Me franchise, but he is really annoying. He's not on that level, but they just kept bringing him back in this movie, and just really didn't work. There's also horrifically horrendous editing throughout this movie that actually started to get on my nerves. There's a shot with Woody Harrelson's character. He's putting his sunglasses on, and he starts to put his hands down, and his hands are here. We cut to the next shot, and he's standing completely straight like this. It's a wide shot, so I guess they're not expecting us to be looking for that, but when you examine film and you really look for stuff like that, it starts to become noticeable. There was an absurd amount of continuity errors in this film where people would just be in different positions as shots cut together, and usually I don't look for that kind of thing because I understand that mistakes happen. It's hard to make a movie, but when a movie with this type of budget, with this type of caliber of actors and a studio behind it does that, and I notice it because I'm not the person who usually looks for that kind of stuff, and it happens a lot, that's not good. And it wasn't like the way Scorsese does it. Scorsese in his films does a lot of intentional continuity errors to make you feel slightly off kilter, make you feel like you're watching something that is, in a way dreamlike. It wasn't like that. The director John M. Chou, who made Step Up 3, a dance film that I actually thought was a lot better than it had any right to be, directs this film, and you can kind of tell that it was just mistakes. I haven't really gotten to my biggest gripe with this film though. The first film, as I said, didn't really make a lot of sense. It was kind of dumb, but it was so fun and self-aware that you can sort of just forget about it, even though a lot of things that happen, you're just like, yeah, no. This film starts to take itself seriously. It has a heartfelt story behind Ruffalo's character, which did work for his character, but then the film starts to get to a point where it was just really a series of completely unexplainable, absurd events where people use CGI magic, and then there'd be a sequence where they explain it elaborately to everyone, but all of the things they explained were all of the things that I didn't need explained. They step out and they're just like, here's how we did everything, and I'm like, yeah, I could tell. I saw the obvious hints to all of these things. Now please explain to me how Jesse Eisenberg vanished and turned into water. There are tons of moments like that in this movie, and there comes a point where you either just roll with it or you sit there being that skeptic guy that's like, no. And I'm not that guy. I actually am the guy who likes to look up at the sky and see a dot and think, oh, is that a UFO? I love stuff like that. When I watch a movie like this, though, I just see writers who are like, we can get away with that because, you know, CGI. And then when a character comes forth and says, how does that happen? And Morgan Freeman is like, well, that's a good question. I'm Morgan Freeman. You just kind of have to believe me because just listen to the sound of my voice. The film just becomes flimsy and deflates on itself. That being said, you can watch this movie. It's a totally watchable movie. It's 2 hours or whatever, and it goes by fairly fast. It's just that the movie feels as if it's making itself up as it goes along. Like the writers were constantly looking for reasons to have the characters in this movie besides the fact that they want a trilogy. And eventually they'll probably get it if this movie does well. I'm gonna give Now You See Me 2 a C-. It's not as good as the first one because the first one didn't take itself so seriously. This one is not as streamlined. The story isn't as good. The first one felt like a movie you could watch and just sort of eat popcorn and forget about the stupid things that were happening. This one takes itself a little too seriously. So guys, stay tuned for this weekend because yes, I am going to upload my rant on annoying moviegoers part 2 because I've had some terrible experiences recently and therapy through video form is surprisingly wonderful. I've already filmed it, and I can't wait to share that with you guys, as well as my Captain America, the 1990 version, Hilariosity, on Sunday. You guys are the best. Thank you so much, as always, for watching, and if you like this, you can click right here and get Stuckmanized.